Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video here. And today we have the opposite end of the spectrum, or from my last video, is severe weather. It's severe weather season. It is the end of the first week of March, March 7th, as I'm recording this video. And this is the real first chance for kind of a widespread severe weather event across the Ohio Valley. Um, Even across mainly the parts of the Mid South as well, but mainly the Ohio Valley here. We'll be focusing on, um, we have our new outlooks now. Just came out earlier this week, so this is our day one outlook here. We have two areas of concern. We have our slight risk area in the Ohio Valley up through sort of New York, Buffalo, near Rochester, Cleveland, Columbus, Charleston, West Virginia, Pittsburgh, all included in the slight risk. And then further south, we have another slight risk, the Texas-Mexican border, all the way up through the mid-south, up through Memphis, almost Nashville, but like Jackson, Tennessee, um, involved in that, and almost up through the up into the Missouri Boot Hill region. So we have here's our tornado risk here, and anywhere in this green will have a pretty low chance, 2% or lower. Um, and this really features through Buffalo, New York, all the way down to Shreveport, Louisiana. The Mid-South, Ohio Valley, in this 2%, but interestingly, we do have this 5% area that is hatched, our SIG level 1. It is hatched in this 5% region, including sort of eastern Ohio and western PA. So these SIG levels are a conditional intensity group, and they're into three categories. Um, and this is sort of to predict the intensity of whatever hazard, tornado, hail, or wind. And this doesn't mean that the probability is increased if there's a hatch. It just means that there is a increased chance of for the potential of intense tornadoes. Um, so anywhere in this 5% risk could have a chance for an intense, uh, more than likely short-lived tornado, and we'll sort of go over the dynamics of that here shortly. But here is a current satellite um, image here, and we can see a lot of clearing in our 5% risk area, Western PA, Eastern Ohio, most of West Virginia, most of Central and Eastern Kentucky. We have plenty of clearing happening. Um, Out ahead of this main front here, which we can see the tops of these clouds across southern Indiana, western Kentucky, even parts of western Ohio. And as we move on throughout the day, this clearing will sort of begin to fill in the next few hours. Once this front moves in, it'll be working into this clearing and sort of better environment for severe weather. So I do want to just look at our surface observations real quick, especially in this 5% risk, but just along the mid-south here, up the Ohio Valley. And we see lots of low to mid 70s, pretty much up to Memphis, Nashville, Lexington, Charleston, West Virginia, up through Wheeling, Pittsburgh. Um, Low to mid 70s, we see our dew points. If we're closer to this front, we're into the lower 60 range. If we're sort of further out, like Charleston, the coal fields, even Nashville, we're gonna be in those upper 50s. Still good, but um, moisture will sort of start to build in build in as the morning sort of continues. So we have mid 70s for our temperatures up to like the low 70s through here. And let's compare that to our models. So 10 a.m. here, and yeah, mid 70s. Could be running a few degrees up to our risk zone. We see like a near 70 for most of it, some upper 60s. H triple R running a few degrees cooler. Um, but overall has the same overall idea with our temperatures. So it's doing pretty good. Let's look at our dew points here. And if we compare these to here, we should be seeing, mid high 60s up through West Virginia, Ohio, PA, and then maybe lower 60s and through Kentucky, Tennessee. Um, Dew points are definitely a bit overdone across the Ohio Valley, according to the HRR. We do not have dew points in the mid 60s across the central Ohio region. We have 60, 59. We do have a 63 in Portsmouth, but just one reading out of an entire state, not, you know, not valid enough for me. Um, excuse me, overdoing the dew point, the moisture. So something to keep in mind in the next few hours. Temperatures are running a bit over, and dew points are running a bit under. So kind of an interesting setup here. Let's look at our NAM here, and again a little bit under with the temperatures. And if we just look at our dew points real quick, um, dew points are a lot better with the NAM. Dew points are handling, or the NAM is handling dew points a lot better. Excuse me. Um, so that is good to know. So we'll be using both the HRR and the NAM 3K in this video to sort of go over what could happen. Well, let's look over our upper air dynamics real quick here, and we can see this sort of shortwave here across the upper Midwest. It's more positively tilted, um, and we can see this here with our height lines here, going down sort of in the orientation of southwest to northeast, indicating of that positive sort of tilt. Um, but yeah, we can see this tilt here. We can see our nice jet streak associated with this shortwave, sort of at the base of this shortwave and approaching around 90 knots. So that is pretty impressive. This is around this morning. As we approach this afternoon into the evening here, uh, if I can get it to stop here, we see the majority of our winds associated with this shortwave are going to be near the base of this trough. Um, but we can see, 50 to 60 knot sort of 500 millibar winds sort of kick in by evening time, and by about 7 8 p.m. here, especially in our tornado zone, we can see that heightened area of upper level winds here, of that sort of um, mid shade of green. That's about 60 knots. That sort of extends down through western or eastern Ohio, excuse me. So something to look at there. We do have, that is sufficient. Nothing crazy, but it is sufficient for potential tornadoes. But one thing to look at is the wind direction here. Definitely get more of a southwesterly flow um, coming up, going in across that region. So if we look at uh, our 850 millibar, our low level jet here, again we can see our shortwave here across the Midwest, positively tilted. It kind of becomes neutrally tilted by evening. But by evening, we can see our highest low level jet winds over the Ohio Valley between 30 and 45 knots, 40 to 45 knots in that sort of 5% hatched region, and that's why we really have that hatch region. Our low level winds by the evening time are going to be pretty impressive. Um, Anywhere between 45 and 50 knots is you know definitely sufficient enough mixed in with those 500 millibar winds. Yeah, that's going to be potentially causing some issues. But additionally, across this region here, our winds, yes, they're southwesterly. Our winds are southwesterly, but they're a bit more westerly. We can see across central Ohio, even across sort of eastern Kentucky, eastern Ohio, a bit more westerly compared to the southwesterly winds. So that sort of leads to some low level turning into the winds. So an embedded spin up or a discrete spin up is certainly possible. So let's look at our surface base cape here, and we're going to look at our href ensemble mean here, and it's going to take about 10 different sort of runs, blend them together. Um, so by afternoon, we can see our sort of southwesterly winds advecting in that moisture into the Ohio Valley, bringing in some cape of around 1,000 joules per kilogram, um, in through western West Virginia, eastern Ohio, northern Kentucky. This will sort of move northward into the evening, and while Cape is not impressive at all in the evening time here, it is still the 500 to 1,000, just enough fuel to really help any storm kick off. But I don't think anything's going to be really long lived up through the Ohio Valley when it comes to tornadoes. Most of our Cape sort of diminishes by mid afternoon, and right when those upper level winds, get going, um, it sort of doesn't allow for that proper timing, but it is still overlapping enough to where that threat is sort of heightened in that area, especially with the increased low level winds. It's sort of the turning of such. Let's look at the HRRR mixed layer cape. This is a pretty important parameter here. And as we move on through the early afternoon, we can see most of our mixed layer cape is going to be associated in that sort of hatch region in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and parts of West Virginia, where 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram seems possible. This cape really dies out by mid-afternoon, and once that front really moves through by evening time, most of that cape will sort of diminish. But plenty of cape to work with. Not anything crazy, but it is enough to help those storms sort of get going. Let's look at the NAM 3K. This is the NAM 3K model. Tends to be a bit bullish on the cape and like the 2 points and temperature, but we'll look at it. And early afternoon here, we can see our cape sort of fuel start to build across the Ohio Valley. Nothing crazy as we move on into early afternoon. Interestingly enough, in our risk zone, we don't have too much fuel to work with. Most of our fuel is across central West Virginia and sort of, northern Kentucky, southern Ohio. So that is a difference compared to the HRRR. But does show the overall same kind of idea, but we'll have to sort of look at that. I think real-time observations will be sort of key in this Ohio Valley region. I'm going to show a few more parameters here. I'm going to show our bulk shear 0 to 6 kilometers. And we can see as this front approaches here across the Mid-South and Ohio Valley, our bulk shear values increase by a lot. So as that front really approaches, that's when we can see those spin ups possible, and more likely to happen. In mid-afternoon hours, we can see spotty bulk shear in our tornado zone, approaching sort of 40, 45 knots, but mainly 30, 35 knots. Nothing crazy, but it is enough to sort of promote that severe weather threat across the Ohio Valley. And again, as that front approaches, those bulk shear values will increase quite a bit. Next, I do want to look at our. Give me one moment here as it loads. So this is the storm relative helicity chart or map here, and this just pretty much indicates the amount of rotation in the updraft that these storms could have. Um, so obviously higher values, closer to 150 to 250 or higher, will indicate sort of that increased tornado threat. Um, And the reason why I wanted to show this is because as we go into the mid-afternoon, according to the HRR here, look at our storm relative helicity values here. Um, we have, some 200 to 250 m squares by second minus squared um, values here, and that is definitely sufficient enough for um, any quick spin ups or even if any discrete activity will form, it's going to be sufficient enough for maybe a quick spin up with even discrete activity. So really across the border of West Virginia, Ohio, all the way up through western PA, that threat does exist. But I do think sort of that eastern Ohio region, like Wheeling, West Virginia, I know that's not Ohio, but Youngstown, Ohio, down through sort of the near the Parkersburg, West Virginia region, the Jackson, Ohio region. That's going to be, I think, the best area for any sort of spin up today, with the secondary better threat sort of across Western PA. I just don't think, while there is a lot of an, sufficient enough of low level turning and upper level winds, clearly the relative helicity values speak for itself. Up 250 plus. Better Cape values will be within that Ohio region and sort of result in better odds of maybe a quick spin up. So let's look at our potential radar here as we move on throughout the day. So as we go into early mid-afternoon, our convection across the Ohio Valley really begins to ramp up. Our main line is sort of entering central Ohio, just moved through Cincinnati, just now moving through sort of western Kentucky and western Tennessee. So our cold front is sort of stationed along this area here. Um, but as we move on throughout the afternoon, we can see this activity across central and eastern Ohio begin to really ramp up, and really just across much of the Ohio Valley, mid-south, really begins to ramp up. And by evening time, these storms across eastern Ohio will be ongoing. Central Kentucky, although the threat across central Kentucky is not that big compared to like the mid South, like Mississippi, Alabama, or even Ohio or Pennsylvania. Let's take a few soundings here. Let's look at a few soundings. Look at what we have going on here. This is Western Ohio at around 2 p.m. And first things first, let's look at our SQT here, and we can see plenty of cape, pretty much from our surface all the way up through our upper atmosphere. We have plenty of it. Our surface cape is measuring around 2,000 joules per kilogram. Mixed layer about 1,200. Forecast cape around 1,800. This is going to be sufficient enough to support potential supercells. Anytime we get that cape around 2,000, supercells are going to be supported, even with 1,000. But 2,000, that's a pretty safe number. Our three cape, here, which sort of the higher the value, the higher sort of the vorticity at the surface can be, and the higher vorticity is sort of can result in quick spin ups along a QLCS line or a sort of convective um, region. But 153 cape is definitely pretty high. That is going to um, be supportive enough for potential quick spin ups. Surface to 3 kilometer lapse rates at around 8 degrees Celsius per kilometer. That is also pretty good. Nothing crazy. SRH values of 150 or surface to 1 kilometer being 150. That's pretty good. Pretty high. Anything over 100 is considered um, sufficient enough. Surface to 3 kilometer, 200, not as high as you'd want, but still really good. 200 SRH values are going to be sufficient enough. Let's look at our photograph here, and it doesn't look too impressive. It doesn't look impressive, but our 0 to like 2 kilometer, that little 2 there, we do see some right hand turning, some right move turning there. But it's nothing crazy. This is definitely going to be sort of a low level shear, low level vorticity sort of spin up event. But yeah, I mean, this sounding does sort of indicate a damaging wind, low in tornado threat. Let's take another sounding, Southern Ohio here, and instantly we can see our Kate values much lower. Our mixed layer Kate values are much lower. 3 Kate values are much lower. Our storm relative helicity values are much lower. Still just good enough, but barely, barely sufficient enough, really. But photograph, again, same sort of idea, 0 to 2. 0 to the 2 kilometer has a little bit of that turning, but nothing meaningful really. Again, embedded spin ups possible, damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour. As we move on through the afternoon, let's take another sounding near Wheeling. And a much better curve, 0 to that 2 right there. Bit better of that curve. Our winds are strengthening quite a bit with height. Not much turning going on though. We can see 30, 40 knots instantly, increasing to about 60 knots there by our 6 kilometer range. Our Cape values are good enough. 3 Cape values, SRH values are good. Yeah, so this is definitely a low end tornado sort of looking chart here. So again, I think overall our main sort of, in my opinion, from what we've just looked at, main tornado threat sort of exists across like the Wheeling area, Youngstown, Jackson, Ohio, Portsmouth, West Virginia, um, even up through closer to Lake Erie, up through northern Ohio. So anywhere in this area, if you're in this area, please be on the lookout for a quick spin up. Wind gusts up to 60, 65 miles per hour. It seems possible. Um, Again, we have plenty of clearing going on, plenty of sort of cape building in. I did actually want to look at our mesoscale analysis here. Um, and yeah, if we look at 6 hours ahead here, we can see that 1,000, kind of hard to see. But if you look over the Appalachian Mountains in this sort of region here, we can see that 1,000 joules per kilogram sort of work its way up northward to um, western PA into eastern Ohio. Let's look at our surface-based cape a few hours ahead of time. And yeah, 1,500 joules per kilogram, even 2,000 sort of popping up there across eastern Ohio. So again, anytime if we're going to get this cape above 1,500, I do think we're going to have a pretty active day across the Ohio Valley. So again, anywhere in this sort of, excuse me, but anywhere in this region here, I'll zoom in. Um, Anywhere in this region, Parkersburg, Wheeling, Pittsburgh, Youngstown, Ohio, Jackson, Ohio, Zanesville, Ohio. Yeah, anywhere in this area, please be aware for a quick spin up. Some strong winds are possible. But this is our first real risk of the day, or of the year, excuse me. And again, here's our risk zones. But I do want to just point out we will be pretty busy in the upcoming days here. So here we have our Monday's risk here. Um, Monday's risk here, day 4, and again, parts of the Ohio Valley, western parts of the Ohio Valley, like Evansville, Indiana, Indianapolis, potentially Louisville. We have that 15% slight risk already in our maps here, and then day 5, all the way up through Buffalo, down through Shreveport, Alexandria, Louisiana, kind of the same general areas today. Um, so next Tuesday, we have to be on the lookout for more severe weather. So I will be having videos out for most likely Tuesday's event, unless Monday's looks more interesting for the Ohio Valley. But more severe weather upcoming. So just, be prepared, not scared. And anywhere in that Ohio Valley region in the slight risk, just be weather aware today. I will be back next week with another video, and until then, catch you guys later.